सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायिने कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूप स्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्थे सुभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्म हृदय आदि कवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः। तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। स्वस्ति अस्तु विश्वस्य खलः प्रसीदतां ध्यायन्तु भूतानि शिवं मिथो धिया। मनश्च भद्रं भजतादधोक्षजय आवेश्यतां नो मतिरप्यहेतुकी। So welcome to all of you to this discourse on Bhagavad Gita. We've been studying Gita at Menla and we are on 3rd chapter. We did verse up to number 11. So half of you are there and half not. Right? So how will we accommodate the other half? I will just brief you what happened before this quickly. So Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters and the first chapter is the introductory chapter. It is a story of battle between cousins over some land problem. Sometimes siblings fight with each other in the family. So it is a usual story, especially fight is over the property. So there was a fight between Kauravas and Pandavas. Pandavas are a set of 5 brothers. Together they are called Pandavas. And Kauravas, they are a set of 100 brothers. So they have a common name, Kaurava. So whenever you hear Kaurava, then you know they are referring to these 100 brothers and Pandava the 5. So among the Pandavas, the greatest hero was Arjuna, to whom Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Sri Krishna. And on the other side, the king was Dhritarashtra, who was blind by birth, and his son Duryodhana was leading the army. So when both the armies they were arrayed to fight at Kurukshetra, which is north of Delhi, it's a real story, although there is a lot of philosophical understanding behind the story, but it actually happened. It's not something made up or just a fable. So when the battle were standing face to face, then Arjuna, whose chariot was being driven by Krishna, he asked him to place his chariot in the midst of both the armies, which was quite unusual. Because in the battlefield you don't go in the midst of both the armies, you will get shot from both sides. So he wanted to see with whom he has to fight, who are on his side, who are on the opposite side. And Krishna, he obeyed the order because he was driving his chariot. And when Arjuna he realized that actually on the both sides they are all his relatives. Some are his cousins, some are his uncles, some are maternal uncles, some are nephews, also some grandfathers from both sides, parents, father side, mother side. So he was very shocked to see this and thinking that, what is this, I am going to kill all my relatives. So I have to fight with them. And therefore he started shaking in his determination to fight. Started having ideas how to avoid it. And he started convincing to Krishna, although Krishna was just driving a chariot. But he was not certain of what he was saying. Therefore he was telling this to Krishna, why he should fight, and he will look at Krishna's face, and Krishna was not supportive of him, what he was saying. He could feel this. So in the second chapter, in the end of first chapter, he drops his bow and arrow and he sits in the back seat of the chariot, feeling very dejected and also confused. So then Krishna, he started to encourage him that, what are you doing? You have come here to fight as a great hero, but you are behaving like a coward. So what is the problem? So then Arjuna again speaks that how can he fight with all these relatives, especially his guru was also on the opposite side, Dronacharya. He said, how can I fight with my own guru? You are supposed to worship the guru, respect him, at least not abuse. And then what to speak of shooting arrows at him to kill him. So he said that I am completely confused, please help me. And then he accepted Krishna as his teacher and asked to be instructed. So that's when Krishna starts speaking in second chapter, 12th verse. So that's where his instructions begin. And in the second chapter he spoke mainly from the duty point of view, that it is his duty as a warrior, as a kshatriya, to fight for the right cause. And then Arjuna asked him a question. So he responds and explains what is Karma Yoga and what is Sankhya, Jnana Yoga. So these were the two topics. But after hearing that, Arjuna did not become very clear about his duty. He thought that from Karma Yoga point it looks like he should fight. But from Jnana Yoga point it looks like he should give up everything become renounced. And it appeared that as if following Jnana Yoga was superior. So that's how the third chapter begins, which we are going to read, in which Arjuna, he poses this question, Jayasi Chet Karmanaste Mata Buddhyo Janarana Tat Kim Karmani Ghore Mam Niyo Jayasi Keshava. That if you think that following the path of knowledge is better than engaging in action, then why are you asking me to fight? So this was his doubt. And then Krishna starts answering. So we had read first 11 verses of this chapter. So Krishna, he informs Arjuna that Arjuna has not understood. Because he said there is no conflict between these two paths. These two paths are for two different types of people. So then he starts explaining the nature. And he says that there are two types of people. There are introverts and extroverts. There are those who are more prone to act, and there are those who are more prone to renounce. So those who are more prone to act, they should follow Karma Yoga, because they have energy, they have also desire to act. And those who are more inclined to knowledge, to renunciation, then they should follow the path of Jnana Yoga. So therefore Krishna said that I did not say two conflicting things, but I spoke of two different paths for two different types of people. So that's how he began answering. And then he started saying that a person who does not control the senses, who has desires, but externally makes a show, and says such a person is called hypocrite, meaning that the person is actually not qualified to follow the path of jnana, of knowledge, but takes to that path. So then he says that is hypocrisy. So many times people, they are not qualified for a particular path or a process or a job, but they take to that, and this creates imbalance in their thinking and action. They are thinking one way and they are acting in another way. So one of the important teaching of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita is to have a harmony between thought and action, which is very important for our life. If we are not balanced, if we are not harmonious in our thought and action, then there will be a chaos. Because our mind is saying one thing, but you are doing another thing. So that's where repression comes, hypocrisy comes. We try to make a show when actually our heart is not into something. And then cheating comes, corruption follows, or we engage in illicit activities, we hide things. So he says that, Krishna says that one should not be like that. Especially a yogi should not be like that. Because you have to be true to yourself. If you yourself are not convinced of something, and then you try to convince others about it, and that's what is called cheating. So therefore he says that better is to practice and then attain something and follow. Not that without achieving, trying to make a show. So basically he was telling to Arjuna that Arjuna is not qualified to renounce. He has a lot of energy. He was a great warrior, and if he takes to renounced life, then Krishna said that he will not remain renounced for very long. Because how long will you suppress your feelings? Somebody does not have the nature to sit down quietly for a long time, and you make him sit down like sometimes parents do to the children as a punishment. So then the child may sit down for a few minutes, but after some time he or she starts moving or doing some unwanted things, because he cannot. He has the energy, and he cannot keep on suppressing it. So you can force it on somebody, but it will not work. So therefore he recommends to engage the senses in a regulated way. So that is what Karma Yoga is. That's what he spoke in the second chapter. He speaks this in this particular chapter also, and therefore he says Niyatam Kuru Karmatvam Karma Jyayo Hiya Karmana. Verse number 8, where he says that you should perform your prescribed duty, and action is better than inaction. Therefore perform your obligatory actions, for action is superior to inaction. Without action you cannot even maintain your body. And then he speaks something which is very unusual at present to hear about that. But it is a very important principle which he talks. So in verse number 9 he had said that actually life is meant for yajna. So this concept of yajna is important to understand. It is usually translated as sacrifice, but it is an act of worship or act of selfless action. To perform an action without any motive, means without a desire to reap the benefit of that action. Just do it as a duty. It's like sometimes people do some voluntary service. You go to church or temple or to some other social organization and do some welfare act. So you do not do it because you want to gain some monetary benefit. Usually we do something in our office, in a job somewhere, so that we will be paid for that. So yajna is some action which is done to help others, to help nature, to take care of nature, without desiring anything in return. That is what yajna actually means. Ultimately it means worship of the Supreme. That is the ultimate yajna. That's why at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he asks Arjuna, Sarv Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. That you give up every duty, every responsibility and be surrendered to me, to God. So that is the ultimate yajna, ultimate sacrifice. But that's not easy to do, since we are not accustomed for that. So therefore, first yajna may be in the form of doing a fire sacrifice. So he says that yajnarthat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. That actually our life is meant to be a yajna. Verse number 9. In this world, a person is bound by the action performed except when the action is performed as an offering to Lord Vishnu. Therefore, O Kante Arjuna, son of Kunti, efficiently perform your duty freed from the desire of fruits for the sake of Vishnu alone. So Yajna is also a name for Vishnu or God. It is also one of the names, so that's how it's used in this verse. You can say that your life is meant for Yajna or sacrifice, or you can say that it is meant as an offering to God. So this is a very deep concept and very difficult to understand because we have moved away so much from this concept, which is real. When you analyze our existence, this universe, how it is functioning, and if you think with cool head, then you will come to know that actually you are not an independent unit. You are actually part of this big universe. It's like we have cells in our body. Although each cell is an independent unit which functions, it takes birth, exists, and produces something, and then it dies. It has its own life. Yet the cell is not independent. It is part of the whole body, and actually it is meant for the body. It does not have an independent purpose. Its purpose is for the sake of the body. We understand this. So similarly, this universe is also a living being. This may be very difficult to accept, but this is the reality. This whole universe actually is living. It has life. And we are little units in it. And therefore we are not independent. So that's why the verse says, Yajnarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karo mandhamanyat. Your life actually is meant for yajna. You can take that yajna to mean as universe, God, sacrifice, whatever. The meaning is that actually your life is not just meant for you. And if you think your life is only for you, that's when you get bound by the law of karma. So then you have to suffer as an outcome of your action. Whatever you perform, then you are responsible for that. So therefore it says Anyatra Karma Bandhana. So Bandhana means bondage. So otherwise you are bound by the karma. And that is the situation with people in general, that everybody is thinking that we are independent and therefore everybody is bound by their karma. And then good or bad result comes from our actions, and then we have no control over it. It's like if you shoot an arrow or shoot a gun, once the trigger is pressed, the bullet is out, then you cannot do anything. It's out, it's going to go out and hit whatever it hits. So like that, once the action is performed, then you have no control over it. Then the reaction will come. When will it come? That also we don't know. Not necessarily that it will come immediately. It may come tomorrow, it may come after 10 years, 10 lifetimes. So that's why things happen to us sometimes which are surprising to us, and we think, why is this happening to me? I am such a nice guy. I don't hurt anybody, I don't do anything wrong in my life. I don't harm others, so why am I suffering? Right? Many times this thought comes. So this happens because you may not be harming somebody in this life, you may not have harmed, but maybe you have done it in the past. And then the result comes for that. So Gita is teaching us how to become free from this bondage and thus actually become free. Not just imagining that we are free, but in reality we are bound. So Gita teaches us the science of becoming free, becoming liberated. And that science in this particular chapter is the Karma Yoga, the science of action, yoga of action. So first he says that in verse number 10, Sahayagyaha praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prashvishyad bhamesha vostvishta kanaduk. So in the beginning of creation, after Brahma created humankind along with Yajna, he said, you shall prosper by this Yajna. Let your desires be fulfilled by this. So as I said that this is a very difficult concept, especially now, because we think in so-called scientific manner. This sounds like very parochial thought that somebody called Brahma, he created human beings. We know it that we came from the amoeba. Right? Amoeba became fish, then frog, then bird, then slowly chimpanzee, then human being, then we came. So what is this Brahma creating? So there is some truth in it, although hard for us to digest it. But everything is not the way we have studied in the school. There are many things which are just taught to us because they don't want to accept God, so they have to find an alternative. And they make some theories. And of course they have to make this little believable, because people also are not stupid. But ultimately it's not very convincing how amoeba came, and then amoeba became slowly fish. So there is no real proof of that. Everything existed, everything was actually created like that. Maybe one thing can change into other little bit, but it does not mean that the other thing did not exist. So as I said that this universe is created, it is a living being, it has some plan. It is not a product of some accident. And because it has a plan, therefore somebody created it. And there is a purpose. So he says that when human beings were created in the beginning, then they were told to do this yajna. And they said that this yajna will fulfill your desires. This is another problematic statement of Bhagavad Gita. Because we know that if I have to fulfill my desire, I need some dollars. How can without dollar my desire be fulfilled? And dollar is printed in America. And they are good at that. That is one thing which Americans do very well, is print dollars. And then purchase from everybody. And then print more. It doesn't cost. So there is another way of fulfilling desire, because even if you have dollars, does not mean that your desire is fulfilled. Right? How many people are free from desire just because they have dollars? You know anybody? No. But there are people who don't have dollars and they are free from desire. So this is the formula which Krishna is saying, that your desires will not be fulfilled by money alone, but you need something more. So that is yajna. And of course you have to understand the science of yajna. So things here are not just happening, as I said, haphazardly or independently, but there is a whole scheme which is going on. Just like now they have this Illuminati theory. Right? Everybody knows about the Illuminati? Yes? Mike, you know? So those whatever 5, 10, 20 people who are controlling the world. So just like they are controlling, so Krishna says that actually beyond them there are some other people. They are the real Illuminati. They are called Devas. Because Deva means illumined people. So he says that Devan bhavetanena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayanta shreya param vakshat. So this is a very important principle, that nourish the Devas through this yajna and let the Devas be gracious to you. Thus mutually pleasing, you shall attain the highest welfare. So Devas are certain beings who are invisible to us. We don't see them, like the Illuminatis. And they also don't come in public. They stay behind. So like that there are Devas. So Deva means divine person. So there are many people in this universe. There is a lot of life. As I said, universe itself has a life. So there are good people, there are bad people. You hear about aliens. Sometimes they come to America, right? Kidnap somebody, brainwash, lead back. Right? You hear all these stories, especially in America. So there are good people and there are bad people in this universe. So good people, they are called Devas, bad people are called Asuras. These are two terms which you will read in Bhagavad Gita. When you want to do something good, there are good people who come to assist you. Sometimes you may have felt in your life that you try to do something, it happened very easily. Some people want to do something bad and they can do it very easily. Because there are also asuras who are helping. So it's like you try to lift weight and then there is somebody who is actually pushing it up invisibly. So you think that you are doing it, but actually there is somebody else who is assisting you. So the yajnas are done to propitiate the good people. These divine people whom we call as Devas or Devatas. So that's why in India there is a lot of worship of various types of Devas. Because in the past people have encountered them. And they saw them, they made their deities or their description. So you can pray to them and they bless you, they give the boons. So this is one way of getting your desire fulfilled. So there are two ways to fulfill your desire. One is through the dollar, other is through the deva. These are two different processes. So we are only told the first one, and the second one is not known to us. So many people, even now, they have some experiences in their life. If you know some psychic ladies, then they will tell you that they come in contact with somebody. There are also many books written by people. Recently I read one book written by surgeon, neurosurgeon, who had gone into coma for 15 days, and he was admitted to his own hospital. They had all these brain scans, and everybody agrees that he was dead. His brain was not functioning. But he had a lot of experience in these 15 days. He came out, he wrote a book. And then he describes his journey to heaven and meeting with some of these devas. He also talks of Om in the process. So of course one can say that he is just making it up, writing a nice fiction novel. That could also be. But he seems to be going around giving seminars now on this. It's quite popular. And because he said that he was an atheist to begin with, he never believed in any of these things. He never thought that there is anything beyond the neurons of the brain, and consciousness is just a product of these neurons. That was his understanding. But after this experience, he speaks many things which match with Bhagavad Gita. So, if he's right, if he's not faking it, I don't know, then he confirms many things which are spoken here in Bhagavad Gita. And if he has read Bhagavad Gita or some other books and then he's making a novel, that is a different story, I don't know. But there are people, I have met some people myself who have experiences like that. So there is some truth in it. So this is what Krishna is hinting at this place. That our sensory perception is very limited. We know this. What we can hear, what we can see or smell or taste or feel, that's how we get our knowledge. So there is a big world lying beyond all this. Things which you cannot perceive with these external senses. And that is also reality. We cannot, just because we do not experience it, we cannot deny that. So of course, we are free to deny anything. But there are people who go beyond our ordinary senses and they feel some things. They experience, and the things get verified. So scientifically also they have done a lot of experimentations, extrasensory perceptions. So they have done a lot of parapsychology, a lot of all types of experiments people do, and they realize that actually there is something which is beyond the ordinary experience. So Bhagavad Gita, books like Bhagavad Gita, they are speaking about such topics. And of course this is not just to sell the book, but it is to give us the benefit of that knowledge so that we can get a better understanding about life and what goes on. So he says that if you do this yajna, then these devas, they will be happy, and then they will be gracious on you, and then they will supply your needs. So that is how people in India in the past, they lived like that. Now what is remaining is all just certain rituals, but in the past people actually knew the art of contacting these devas by doing yajna and chanting mantra. Mantra was a way, just like you have your cell phone, so you can dial a number and then you get hooked up to somebody who may be 10,000 miles away from here. So how does this happen? Through the waves, right? So maybe 200 years ago nobody would believe anything like this. But now we understand that we can actually talk to the person and you get linked up to that person. It's a reality. There is no imagination involved in it. So similar thing happened in the past in India, that these people, they had developed this science of contacting the devas through chanting of the mantras, which creates a specific vibration. And of course you have to perfect the mantra by chanting it thousands and thousands of times. So then you are able to match that particular frequency of the mantra, which links you with the deity of the mantra. Mantra has a particular deity, the deva. Every mantra has a deva behind it. So mantra is actually a way of connecting to that deva, because ultimately everything is a vibration. So these people, they had perfected this art, and thus they could contact these devas and then get boon from them. So this is what Krishna actually is referring to in this particular verse when he says Te Deva Bhavayantuva, that they will be gracious on us. So we should not disbelieve his words just because we do not experience it. Yes.
Using your analogy, when we dial a number on the cell phone and we reach a specific person, when the mantras are chanted and to the devas and there's a connection, is the boon something specific, or another way of saying, are these people asking for something and that is given, or it's a boon of some kind that they might have wanted or not, or do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, so there are two ways of worship or chanting or doing yajna. One is called sakama yajna, means yajna which is performed with a specific desire. So you already know that this is what I want, and you proclaim it at the very beginning of the process. So if some of you, if you have seen that when we do the yajna, then they tie a thread around the wrist. You have seen that, right? So that is called Sankalpa Sutra. So when that thread is tied to your wrist, and the priest is the one who's tying, so then the priest asks, or if he knows for what purpose you're doing it, so he has to actually pronounce it at that time. So Sankalpa means resolve or proclamation. So this thread is that it is with this resolve that I am doing it. And this is what I want to achieve. So that is called Sakama Yajna. And then Niskam means that you do not have any specific desire. You just do it for the pleasure of the deity or as your duty. But you do not want anything specific. So then also you get something. So these are the two ways of doing worship. So here Krishna is actually speaking of Shreya, because although it looks like as if he is talking of some material boon, but he says Shreya Param Avapshata, that you will attain supreme welfare, which means that you will attain freedom from bondage of karma. In other words, he is not prescribing it for any material purpose. Because the understanding is that if you do it for anything material, then that's very temporary. So those temporary things you will get anyway. So he said that try to get the permanent result. And permanent result is, especially from this karma yoga, to become free from karma. So you use karma yoga to get rid of karma itself. So that is the meaning of Shreya. Because Arjuna has actually asked this in the very beginning when he requested Krishna to teach him. So he used the same word Shreya, Yena Shreyaham Apnayam. So he said that Sishyasteham Shadimam Tvam Prapannam, that I am your student, surrender to you, please instruct me so that I can attain ultimate welfare. Karpanya dosho uphat svabhava prichhami tvam dharma sammudha cheta. So Krishna is using the word Shreya here, that you will attain supreme Shreya. So Arjuna has said the same thing, Yat Shreya Syat Nishchitam Bruhi Tanme, that tell me by which I will attain Shreya. Shreya means that after attaining that, then you don't need to attain anything else. That is called Shreya. So prayas means something material, and Shreyas means which satisfies all your desires. After attaining that, no more desires. So that is a Shreya you will attain. So that means Krishna is prescribing niskam karma. So then in the next verse, he says, Ishtan bhogam hi vo deva dasyante yagya bhavitaha tai dattana pradayabhyo yo bhukte stena evasha. He says that pleased by the yagyas, the devas will bestow upon you your desired objects. One verily is a thief who enjoys the gifts bestowed by the devas without offering them in return. So again the same principle, that we are not independent units, but we are part of the universe, and we are utilizing things of the universe for ourselves. We are taking air to breathe, light, water, we are using the ground to walk on. So these things are not belonging to any particular government. It's not that American government created the air to breathe or water to drink. So these basic things, they exist in nature. And of course, our tendency in modern times is to conquer the nature. But this is a mistaken idea. You cannot conquer nature. Nature means, when I say nature, this external nature, it is not possible to conquer it. Because it is much bigger than you. You are part of it. Your body is made from the products, elements of the nature. body itself is made from a very tiny part of the nature. How that tiny part can conquer the nature, it's not possible. It's like your little finger thinks to be the ruler of your body. It's not possible. So the Indian culture was to worship the nature. Modern culture is to conquer the nature. This is the difference. So conquering is not possible, worshipping is possible. And by conquering, you will only get a reaction. Because nature will also hit back to you. Because nature is not dead matter. Again, remember that nature is not dead. Nature has life. So everything is in tandem. There is a harmony. One thing depends on the other. Therefore, when we disturb one species, then it causes disturbance in many other species. And those who study ecology, they realize this fact. So just like if you cut one part of your body, then it is not that just one part is removed, it actually has a bearing on the whole body. You may feel it, you may not feel it, but it is a fact. Because that part is linked with the whole body. So Krishna says that we are using things from the nature, and if we do not give it back, then we are thief. It's like you use electricity in your apartment. So then you have to pay your monthly bill. If you don't pay the bill, then what will happen? They will disconnect it. Or if you try to steal electricity, they do that in India. Then you will get caught sooner or later, then you will be punished. So in the nature also, we are breathing, we are taking light, we are taking water. And if we do not do yajna as an act of appreciation, then we are considered as thieves because we are just stealing it for our own use. So he is very clear. He says, "Te nayemer." He is verily a thief. Krishna is not giving any choice that maybe you are thief, maybe you are not. He says, "No, you are." Because you are taking it without paying anything. So therefore this act of worship which existed, this worship of nature, it may sound primitive idea. I'm thinking that these people, they don't know. But this was actually an act of appreciating what we take from the nature. And then don't think that water is dead thing and air is just a dead thing blowing around. No, there is a deity behind it. And they are observing. So they observe, and if we appreciate it, then they are happy and then they bless you more. So therefore he recommends this, that Ishtan Bhogan Vivo Deva Dasyante Yajna Bhava. That these devas, they are supplying our needs, and if they supply our need, then it is also our duty to pay them back. And paying them back does not mean that it costs you so much. You have to chant mantra or do this yajna. Then they are happy. So that was also one of the purpose of doing yajnas. That even if you do not have any specific desire to fulfill, then you do it just an act of appreciation, saying thanks to them. You say thanks to each other, right? Somebody does something to you, then you say thank you, you are considered. If you don't say that, then people say, oh, she is very rude. So this is what is being described here. Then he continues speaking, he says, Yagyashishtasana santo muchyante sarvikil visai bhunjate te tvagam papaya pachanti atma karanat. The saintly people who partake the remnants of yajna are absolved of all reactions to misdeeds, but the wrongdoers who cook food just for themselves acquire only bad karma. So there is this concept of Yagyashesh or Yagyashishta, accepting things as remnants of Yajna. So instead of thinking that I am the enjoyer, I am the Lord and Master of all that I survey, to know that I am just a tiny part and I utilize some part from this nature for myself after I have offered back to the nature, to the devas. So he gives the example of food specifically, but that applies to everything else. So he says that you eat food, and obviously we cook food for ourselves. So he says that if you cook food only for yourself and you don't make an offering, then you are getting reaction to that. And the reason is same, which we have spoken, that it is being supplied by the devas. These devas are agents of God. They are the managerial heads. So just as in a state you have various ministers, various departments to look after the management of the state, like that the universe also has managerial heads, devas. So they are supplying our needs, but if we do not do yajna, then we are punishable for that. So what is the punishment? That we get karma, and then that karma binds us. So therefore it is recommended that even if you eat food, then you offer it to God, and then you eat. So God is not going to run away with your plate, but just a gesture. So we feel obliged, and just by doing that, you become free from the karma. So this is the science of karma. You say, well, why you have to do this? Well, you don't do it. But just because you do not agree to it does not make you free from karma. Because once you die, then you don't have the freedom. What will happen to you? So we have the habit of just taking. And he is telling to give. Yajna actually means to give. And if you give, you will not become poor, you will get more. That is the art.